So I'll just go through the basic first. I want to make sure everybody's covered as well. When you're an investor, make sure you do everything legally and ethically. That's what the disclaimer is about. And as much as I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an accountant to you, I do want you to seek professional advice when it comes to your real estate business, because they're the ones that have the degree, have the license, has the error in admission. If anything goes wrong, they're there to help you and they're covered. At the same time, I always say you probably have more than one mortgage broker. You have more than one accountant, and definitely more than one or probably 2 or 3 lawyers on your power team. So I love that. I love that everybody's here to learn, and we're getting starting it right. By the way, I intentionally left out a couple of, or even more, power team members that you're supposed to have on your power team list. Can somebody give me 1 or 2 or 3 examples of who should be also on your power team?
Realtor,
that's a good one. And Mike, who do you think should also be on your power team?
Contractors,
yes. So contractors should be on your power team as well. So our strategy coach, another Mike, just logged in. Mike, wave to everybody. I know there are more people logging on as we speak. So Mike, I don't check the chat box frequently. So if you can help, definitely feel free to answer a few questions they may have, okay? Appreciate that. Thank you. So I always put this little circle on the side. Ken, I don't know why you have a Chinese last name. However, I'm not sure if you can read Chinese. I love this quote, so I always put it there.
Nice. No, I can't read it, unfortunately. I'm a half-breed. Not my fault I was born that way.
Like my kids. Perfect. So I hope to pass down a little bit of wisdom from thousands and thousands of years ago. And what it's saying there kind of resonates with me when we're speaking about power team members. If you're not the smartest person, find somebody smart to plan. If you're not smart, however, you're very strong, use that person's strength. So somebody on your power team, contractor could be one. And if you're not even brave, find somebody who has the courage to go ahead and start on your power team. And if you're scared, find somebody who is really cautious, because these are usually the really analytical people on your power team. You do need those people on your team as well. However, ultimately, you're the one who is going to make the decision as to what projects or what deals to go through. So that's the point. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 lawyers, 2 or 3 accountants on the team. And I also have experience with lawyers who are really good. However, they scare my investors away. Because yes, if you're the person that is the most cautious, sometimes you need somebody who have the courage to lead the team, to go ahead. And perhaps that is you. Whatever strength you have, whatever I just mentioned that happened to be your strength, leverage everybody else's strength as well. So Bardry, is that how I pronounce your name, or Bardi? Thank you for logging on. I recognize that you have your camera on. So every time somebody turns the camera on, I do want to recognize you. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's Badri. Nice to see you.
Badri, okay. I think you left a message for me as well today. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
That was actually in my gratitude
I'm just going
journal.
to mute myself.
What's that? Sorry, I cut you off.
So I can just mute myself now with your presentation.
Yes. So mute yourself. If you do want to speak, or by the way, I will check the chat in the very end. If I didn't answer your question, I will do that. So I will stay here as long as I can until everybody's question is answered. And I do want to add one more person on your power team, and that is us, your real estate investing mentors. And yesterday, Donna, was Tuesday. Sorry, 2 days ago, I also shared with everybody that, of course, you have your peers and you have your friends and family who love you so much. And it's common for us to just ask for advice from people we know. However, they're always very encouraging. So possibly you only hear the good things, good news. And of course, we're very supportive. At the same time, if you only listen to the critics, especially people who don't even know you, sometimes they critique and it might not be very positive. If you only listen to the positive comments, you're going to be complacent someday. However, if you only listen to the negative voices, they might not be the right people on your team. And that's why it's so important for somebody like your mentor, like why we're here today, to check your blind spot. So give you the good and the bad and guide you along the way. That's just something I recently learned about mentors, about coaches. So I do want to share that with you. It is not something new from me. It's from an author. His name is Adam Grant. And recently I read his book, Hidden Potential. He also has a few other books. So something I would recommend if you're looking for books to read for the new year. And again, I do want you to focus on the reason that you're here. Of course, I understand that it's dinner time for somebody, and some people have young kids, some people are driving. So when they're off, when they're finally back home, turn on your camera. That's totally fine if you're eating and there's other things you have to do, other obligations. And I do want you to understand that really it's about taking action. The acquisition of knowledge brings you satisfaction. So if you're only here to learn, you don't know where to apply your knowledge yet, at least I want you to be here and listen to what we've done, examples, how you could acquire knowledge and sometimes apply it. And really when you take action, apply, that will bring you fulfillment. Okay, I know everybody has a goal. Could be fulfillment, could be something else, could be taking action this year to get yourself started. So focus, participate, and raise your hand. I can see the little emoji. If you do have questions, that's gonna stop you from learning the next thing. So if you're really, really stuck, let me know. And that is on me. Because my goal today is to help everybody understand the basics of real estate investing. So if I'm speaking jargons or I didn't explain what each term means, raise your hand if that's going to stop you. However, for everything else, if you put in the chat, I will check at the end. And by the way, if you want the slides, I always put them up in our shared folder. However, you have to take action. Reach out to your strategy coaches to grab the slides so you can read, at least read, and you'll learn 10%. If you're carefully listening to what I'm saying here, you're going to get 20%. Where I want you to be, at least today, is to get to 70%. So you participate. And if you're really excited, so Donna, if you want to share with Greg or somebody else, that's when you're like the teacher. Share what you learned today. So that is how you get to the next step. And even for us, every time I teach, I know this is not new material for me or for some people who are already in the real estate investing environment. However, I learned so much by talking to you or through your comments, letting me know what I can do better. Or when you're telling your spouse or sharing the wealth with your friends, if there is something that is really difficult for you to explain, think back. Perhaps there's an easier way. So that is also a learning process. Where it's the 10%. So the last 10% is to have fun. Make sure you're having fun here today. I know there's a lot of scary things you might have heard when people invest. However, this is a simulation. If you're making mistakes, make it here. So you're just having fun here, having all the fun you could have. I'm not going to give you a test. So just have fun and learn. And what's really fun is that this is the beginning of the year. So if you happen to use a vision board, or, come on, it's January. Everybody has New Year resolution. At least focus on one aspect of your life, what you want to do. Even if it's just a little bit, for example, read a book, read 2 books, or just connect with somebody in the community, 1 or 2 person a day. Maybe that's something you can do. Or if you haven't taken the next step, speak to a strategy coach. Or if you're already in the community, speak to your mentor. And I do that with my students too. So I'll give you a little bit of story of when I sat down with my mentor, Tim, and that was January. And because that was the time I realized I got into a lot of deals. I actually ran really, really fast when I got started. However, I took on a lot of deals. I wasn't even close to my financial freedom goal. And I realized that I wasn't focused. So luckily, he gave me some of the fundamentals that I've already learned. For example, different buckets of income. And I'm actually going to go through that with you today because it's January. And I think that will really help a lot of people getting focused. Even if you're already in the community, and even for myself, sometimes we know it. We just have to be reminded. So Catherine is going to help me get ourselves started. What are your goals? Remember, there's so many different aspects of your life. I do want to help you reach your goal. However, I'm not a health expert. And if you have your own religion, whatever it is, or you want to improve your friendship or relationship with your family, etc., that should be on your vision board. If you want to travel, my goal today is to help you with the financial aspect. And if you need a little bit of mindset, a little bit of reminder, a little bit of motivation to help you get there, and that happens to fulfill other aspects of your life, I would really love that as well. And Catherine, please pull it out, and I will ask one or two people to share. Okay, I think people are thinking.
I think there's more than one.
I know. You know what's interesting? Pick one that jumps out when you look at everything.
Now I'm curious what Donna has picked.
I would have picked most of them, I think. All of the above.
All of the above. Isn't that great? We have choices in life.
Who doesn't love choices, Brooke?
I know. Okay. I think everybody put their answers in. Funny enough, nobody is planning for retirement. I guess this group is way too young for that. That's
Not
probably
me, I would have put that too.
Oh, you love what you do so much, you never want to retire? Who knows? Okay. That's great. Can I ask who put, if you don't mind sharing? People don't mind sharing? Who wants to get out of your job? Seema. Okay. Okay. All right. So there's a lot of things that could complement each other. For example, if you have the cash flow to cover your working income, your monthly income, that could be it. However, I do want to mention there's a little bit of difference. Say, for example, you buy and sell to create capital. You did a flip. That doesn't help you create cash flow. However, that's going to help you get out of your job if you can get a lump sum of money out of a deal. Okay. So I love that. I highlighted cash flow, by the way, and I also highlighted money because that's really what we're going to talk about today. And by the way, we talk about different things in our seminar. Even though we only have an hour and a bit every time, I aim not to go over time, by the way. I value your time. I understand that all you're investing here today is your time. Our seminar is free because we want to get you started. I still do respect your time being here, by the way. So really, I don't want to talk about myself. It's not all about me. However, I'm about to share ideas. And a lot of you share similar journeys as me. And if you're with me in other seminars, I do tailor my intro to the strategy we're going to talk about today. And you realize that I put a lot of strategies out there. And like Mike, like other people on the team, we happen to have a lot of different strategies in our toolbox. Because really, it depends on where you are in your life. I started with lease option because I wanted to, like you guys, have enough income to cover my working income from my job. So I looked for something that's going to generate enough cash flow for me in a short period of time. However, I wasn't focused, by the way. Even though I thought my focus was lease option, when people approach me to do flips, when people approach me to buy a long-term hold, I did. However, that tied up my capital. And as time goes on, I realized that, okay, now I know how to generate capital. I want to do something different. And now, like Mike and like other people on the team, we realize that it's time for us to give back. At least money is not our biggest fear anymore. We can focus on other aspects of our lives. So for me, it's to share. And in a very, very easy way, even though writing a book is a commitment, is to just write a book. And this is my recipe, my story. If you're in TYT already, you realize that we all follow a very similar path. Regardless of who you speak to on the team, consistent answer. This is what we did. We focused on different strategies. We kept saying 3x3 right now. You have to have at least 3 strategies you're familiar with or focus on. And sometimes, not by design, perhaps you're thinking, hey, I'm going to focus on multifamily. And I happen to start focusing on multifamily because I have funds to invest. And there were a lot of multifamily opportunities out there. And that's why we designed it like a university. And you have to have different courses, different major compulsory classes you're taking. And another thing is, it is also for me, everything you do, there is a goal for the audience, and there should be also something for you, for your fulfillment. And I put a mic there because actually my biggest fear was to speak in front of people. I don't encourage you to watch old videos of me if you happen to be in the community. One thing is it's very outdated because creative financing is always changing. At the same time, my energy was very low while you watch those videos. And yes, I'm providing the knowledge. At the same time, I also want you to feel energetic, feel our passion and our enthusiasm when it comes to real estate. It's never easy, by the way. I do share stories also in my book when things went wrong. However, that's just part of it. I kept saying it is a goal-driven journey because we're already in this house. That's where I am right now. So when I look at my monthly cash flow, yes, I covered my working income, for example. I wasn't a high income earner, by the way, because my husband is also working. So when we have to build a home, say, for example, we actually have to get into a bidding war at the time. For $100,000, we have to offer additional $100,000. I'm looking at it as how it fits my financial picture. So say, for example, it's $100,000 additional mortgage we have to be qualified for. Besides the qualification, it's equivalent to, at the time, about $500 per month additional mortgage cost. So if I focus on lease option, I'll also give you a summary of different strategies. If I focus on lease option, and even if I don't want to use my qualification, if I joint venture with somebody else, each lease option deal will bring me $500 of cash flow. So for us to put in an offer of additional $100,000, we just have to find a deal that generates $500 more. That's using lease option. However, what really helped me reach that goal was actually private lending. So, which we're going to talk about today. Because with the additional income, you can decide what you want to do with the money. By the way, a mortgage of your home is not an asset. We know that it's a liability. So we're not against doodads if this is something you really want to do. And think about if you want a fancy trip. Actually, that's what a lot of people love to do. To have a trip with the family. If you want that, perhaps it's another $10,000 a year. Can you buy a multifamily? Increase a 10-unit, $100 per unit. Can you do that? Increase additional income. Or if you have the funds, can you lend out another $200,000 and make another $1,000 a month, deducting debt servicing? So it's things like that you have to consider. It's really not about collecting properties, about what it's going to do for you in your life. That's why we have so many different strategies. So when I started investing, so perhaps Ken, for you too, or Mike, when we started, we focused on 2 strategies, 2 exit strategies, and we were set. However, it's never going to be easier. I'm not going to say it's hard because I think there's always a way. Our goal is for you to at least be familiar with 3 different strategies. So when it comes to things pivoting or the market changing, at least you know how you can exit or you have options. It's really about options. So being about control as an investor, if you have control and you know you have options, there's other tools you can put together. For example, setting up your corporations correctly, business fundamentals. And if you have a deal, you cannot get funds from the bank. Bank is also OPM. If you're not able to do that, use different strategies. Use creative financing. So I'm going to touch upon a few things you can do in creative financing. Raising funds. How are you going to speak to your investors? So it looks overwhelming, by the way. I understand that. It's like going to university and that's our goal. Now we're Trust Your Talent Academy. So if you're going to university and say, for example, you want to double major in lease option and income property, you do have to take math, for example, creative financing. You do have to know how to communicate. So communication is also a course I realize in university now, everybody needs to take. So for us, it's raising funds. So what are you going to do to put everything together? And also wholesale and assignment, you have to understand, it's like we say flipping paper is also another strategy you can consider. And I know it's overwhelming and I get a lot of feedback from students, existing or new. How do I know how much I will generate? How far I am from my goal? So one thing is, if you don't have a goal, you don't know where to aim to. What are your chances of succeeding? If you look at the chart, I'm just giving you a guideline. By the way, this changes all the time too. Since I started investing, we constantly have to pivot. Say, for example, you want to focus on income property and you just want an additional income of $3,000, for example, $3,000 to cover your basic expenses. And in that case, $150 per door. Basically, you just need 20 doors. It sounds like a lot. However, you might come across a deal, a 20-unit apartment in one property, help you reach your goal. And if you look at lease option, that's where I started. And I use simple numbers, $500. If you're getting into the deal, sharing the wealth with somebody else, you each get $500. Again, if you want to reach your financial goal of $3,000, how many deals will you need? Simple math. Donna, how many deals would you need? If it's lease option, you're getting $500 per month, and you want to have $3,000 per month to cover your expenses.
6.
Exactly. There you go. And it sounds like a lot.
I didn't have my calculator. I'm not very good at math.
Oh, you were great. I know I picked on you because really it doesn't seem that overwhelming when you break it down. Say, for example, Donna, you want to reach your goal in 2 years. Sounds a little ambitious. If you want 6 lease option deals, focus on 3 per year. That's it. 3 deals per year. In 2 years, you're going to reach your goal. Okay. And sometimes it's in my book, I focus on 1 deal per season. So 4 deals per year. You don't even have to find a deal next week. If you can find a deal every 3 months, that's it. You can reach your financial goals in a year and a half. So that's how you look at it. And for some people, I'll tell you for myself, I mentioned that I didn't run that fast in the beginning because I actually had funds. I didn't learn about private lending. So the couple of private lending deals I did finally got me into financial freedom. Say, for example, I always use the number 12%. So if you have $100,000 and 12%, every month you can generate $1,000 at 12%. If you have $600,000 and 12% of return, every month, $6,000, simple math. By the way, you don't need your calculator at this point. And as you go through more deals, the numbers will seem more natural to you. So that is the goal. By the way, if that's still not clear, go through your plan with a strategy coach. Okay? Go through your plan with a strategy coach. If you're just thinking about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. And if you schedule a call with your strategy coach, it's going to be real and get you a lot closer to where you want to be. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. I'll tell you the background because I love this. This was my class at the end of October. Why did I want to talk about raising 5.7 million in a weekend? It's actually 5.8, close to 5.8 if you look at what we did in class. It is not a very big class, by the way, and some of them are couples, as you can see. So we did a little bit of an exercise of raising funds. So call your credit card company or look at your online banking. Is there any special offers? Just by doing that, or some people already have HELOC or already have some funds, lazy money, they don't know what to do with yet. So if you're going to workshop next, one of the things you're going to do in the workshop is to see if there's possibilities of raising funds. Check if the banks are offering you special offers at a low interest rate, or if you call your friends, somebody is telling you, Mike, I have $200,000 in RRSP. I don't know what to do with it. Can you help me invest? So there you go. We add up all the resources people have in class. By the way, Ken, I know you have infinite signs behind you. See the infinity sign on top of the chart? And that's also from one of the students. She was actually telling me, by the way, every time I have a great deal, I have a lot of investors reaching out to me. I really think it's infinite. I really think finding money or resources I have is infinite. That's why I put a sign up there. However, she was taking refresher in my class. She's a little bit more seasoned compared to other students. And really, if you know how to structure a good deal, money is not an issue. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This is where this whole idea of raising 5.7 million came from. It was one weekend. So we've gone through some REF fundamentals today. I do want to see what resources are available to you at this point. So if you don't have any resources yet, perhaps get the words out, okay? Or check your online banking. Or check your mail. I guess a lot of people just dump their mail and thinking that it's junk. Now you'll open all the bank letters to see if you have anything offered in the mail to you. So I think Ken mentioned that, hey, you don't know what's going to come up. So if you're going to join us, the one coming up is in Toronto. We're going to have the workshops live this year. So there's no excuse if you're in the West Coast or if you're here with me in Toronto. The one coming up, January 19th to 21st. And if you are already existing students, you can come to the networking event on the Saturday. And perhaps you'll meet a lot of people in the workshop as well. In Calgary, in Edmonton, in Vancouver, by the way, it's selfish if you don't share the wealth and if you love what we're about. Take a picture of a QR code and send it to your friends. And I know, Seema, you've already been doing that, and I appreciate that. And I'll wait for your friend to log on as well. I won't be able to see everybody not having their camera on. That's why I highly appreciate it if you can have your camera on. And on top of that, if you want to learn more, remember, we still have a lot of resources out there. We're going to talk about how to raise 5.8 million in one weekend. Or I know some of you want to get out of your JOB. That's the next thing we're going to talk about. I'm already giving it away a little bit today. When you look at what each strategies will bring to you, you'll realize how quickly you can reach your six-figure financial goal. By the way, I'm not talking about overnight. I'm not talking about next week. Remember, our goal is 2 to 5 years. In 2 to 5 years, you're going to reach your financial goal. Our goal at Trust Your Talent, like Mike, Financial Freedom Fighter, and a lot of students are winning awards, help you to create financial independence. And we want to do that one person at a time. We're only in the business for 4 years now. Yeah, January 18th is our anniversary. So in 4 years, we have created so many freedom fighters already. By the way, it took me 4 years. And there are already so many students reaching their goal within the 4 years. And I can see why, because you're supposed to build upon our experience like we did with Tim and Ray. So if you build upon each other's experience and knowledge, and now we have the network, you don't have to reinvent the wheels. And that's why we can run so much faster. By the way, I keep it there because if I'm not making a difference in your life, log off. If you have nothing to learn or no takeaway, by the way, I hope that's not the case. And you have no takeaway at this point. I want you to at least write down 1 or 2 things, even if it's just a refresher. anything that resonates with you. Okay, that's my goal. Even for myself, sometimes I still go to other instructors' classes and see what I can take away. And by the way, I learned something today. I do want to share with you. Are you the same when you started your real estate investing journey? There's a voice out there. You always want to learn more. You don't know where to start, but you think I should do this. That's me. I don't know anybody else. If you haven't felt that, be more intuitive, be open. Because one of the things we ask the students to do is to at least open up. We're over friendly. It is a very friendly environment. Be open, be coachable. We can make mistakes. Nobody is going to laugh at you. Nobody's going to do that because we all did the same thing. We all make mistakes. So what I want to share with you is that sometimes people realize that we already understand what's out there. There's a lot of the same quotes, they're just said in a different way. So if there's something I said, it's already something you understand or felt or you resonate with. It's just being said in another way, write it down. Because sometimes I think we want to be reminded in a different way. And it help you reinforce what you learned. I'm going to go through this again because I briefly mentioned that. That's how I reached my financial goal. So in January, when I sat down with Tim, he put down this pie again. And I'm like, why didn't I remember this? Because sometimes we lose focus. Again, think about where you are in your life. I understand some people like me, I've more senior, more life experience. Lucky enough, we have saved up a little bit. Or we didn't realize that we could get out of our JOB sooner. So we saved up, we have some RSP. Perhaps you have some money to invest. Private lending is one of the ways to be more passive. At the same time, I do want you to learn different strategies because I realize that even if you're not the one actively working in the deals, if you're investing in other people, you have to know how they can make money back for you. Why does it make sense for you to invest in them? And after working with so many investors, even the questions you asked, your working partner will know how much you know. And also, as a good working partner, a deal creator, they're supposed to help you reach your goals as well. So be very clear as to where you want to be. So earn income, we mentioned JOB, and that's what most people want to do this year, get out of your JOB as your goal when we did our survey. If that's the case, think about how you want to replace your earned income. By the way, nothing wrong with that. If you still love your job, it's okay if we trade our time for money. If you happily do what you do with your time, at the same time, you want to have income. What if you're sick someday? So like insurance, what if something happens to you? Don't you want your real estate portfolio to generate income for you? One of the freedom fighter this year, reach out to him if you haven't talked to Francis. So he had a heart attack. He has his own business for many years. And he realized that when he was sick, private money, private lending was the only business that he had generating cash flow for him. So something to share. Everybody has different stories. However, we all learn something every day. And passive income, cash flow. Private lending, find money in the buy. We talked about distressed property. So find money in the buy is also a way of finding equity. Mike, can you share something with the group?
Yeah, what I wanted to say is I love this pie chart because it's applicable to when we say the 3x3, because you look at all the three different ones there, the portfolio, earned, and passive, you realize there's a variety of different strategies. Now, some of them can fall into 2 buckets, some of them only fall into 1. And that's why it's so important, because most just rely on one. And whether it's a job or whether it's just income property or what have you. And then when the market does one of these or even that, they can't do maybe the strategy that they've learned. For myself, like you, Brooke, I started off doing lease options. However, in my sort of backyard, I discovered some opportunity with secondary suites, and there was a lot of opportunity. And this was even throughout COVID too, and a lot of people they paused, they froze up because of what's this world doing? We took that opportunity and we scaled. And now, we're actually doing a little more flips than we have before. So I find you got to be nimble. You got to be able to pivot based on the market, based on what your goals are, because your goals will change year over year. Because maybe you're like, I have enough passive income. I want to create a bit more earned income. I want to create more capital so I can start doing the portfolio and start lending. Whatever it is, it will pivot. The biggest thing I would say is, be patient, be persistent. It will start to bear fruit.
Thank you for sharing that. And also, if you look at it, I know Mike and some students are starting to look at paper asset. So really look at multiple streams of income. Something I learned is that the millionaires and billionaires, usually they have at least 7 streams of income. I know it's all real estate. When you look at it, like what we're doing here is actually different streams of income. Okay, and they fall under all these buckets. So personally, because my son is out of the house and we're closer to retirement age, I do want to focus on building portfolio income, because how long are we going to live? And if you're young, you want to get out of your job, I understand that. You want to make some earned income. And regardless, this is really starting from you. After you realize where you want to be, then focus on the strategies that will help you fill all these buckets. So again, strategy first, market, then property. I've also done property first. I know that it is more like gambling. If you buy a property hoping that it will appreciate, and I realize that everybody wants to make money quickly. However, is that the way to go? Really, it is about control. So I talked about retirement. Actually, when I started teaching and present the same example, the number has changed so much. And even a few years ago, when I still had a financial planner and not knowing where to invest my money, they're suggesting that save up to $1 million. Why is that? You can Google the 4% rule. We use it in Canada, we use it in the States. They're saying that if you have $1 million, 4%, live on $40,000 when you retire. However, is it enough? So I update the information as I go through the presentation. Right now, on average, if there's something called a basket of goods. So if you check Stats Canada's website, we need around $75,000 to cover your basic expenses: food, transportation, shelter. So if you want to generate $75,000 a year, and if you don't want to learn about investing, you want to follow the 4% rule, you need close to 1.9 million sitting there idle just to make that income. By the way, ROI, I'll just give it to you right now, is how fast your money can run for you. So return on investment. I hope you can generate more than 4%. Now you're learning more about investing. And why do I think people are in trouble? Because that's the medium net worth of Canadian families, $329,000. I do have a lot of data to pull. I chose some that resonates with me and that speak to the topic today. So if 75,000 is what we need in Canada, by the way, that is just to have the basic expenses covered. Do you want to travel? Do you want to do something different? Do you want to have the experience? My family is all the way across the ocean in Taiwan. Every time, if I just buy the tickets to go back, a couple of years ago before COVID, it was at least $1,600 to fly over per person. Yes, if I want to fly first class, right now it's at least $3,000 to fly over. So basically almost doubled. So if that's your goal, if you just want to have choices, I don't think that's enough. And also most people, so 90% of the population, every dollar they make, they spend more than that. And that's why you want your money to work a little bit harder for you. And a quarter of the Canadians are not able to cover expenses if the expense increased by $500 per month. By the way, I just read that before I started the seminar. They're thinking about increasing the property tax in Toronto by 10%. By 10%. So that's easily over $500 just on your property tax bill. However, I think you should aim a little bit higher than that, and that is why you're here. I'm going to talk about net worth as well. So I understand that you could have the choice of living in different cities. And if you happen to live in Toronto like me, family of four, at least $6,000. If you're in Vancouver like Ken, still around $6,000. I don't think it matters where you live. However, you should have the option of living the standard that you want to live in. So if we look at different strategies, I'm giving you some examples here. So same thing that I did with the average of each strategy, each deal, what it's gonna bring you every month. I mentioned that, hey, I do want to travel, and I know that my property tax will increase by 10% very soon. By the way, the government is printing money. Of course, money has to come from somewhere. So I'm using the example of 4,200 just to say, for example, your expenses have increased by 4,000. So what do you want to do? What do you want to do in order to increase your monthly income? So I'm giving you an example. If this is your goal, again, I use pretty much the same number as one I just spoke through it. For lease option, perhaps some of you can qualify for mortgage yourself. So if you can generate 2 deals, 2 mortgage, and average return, I'm using $1,000, then every month, additional cash flow of $2,000. If you find an income property that can generate, say, 3,600, then 300 per month. So I'm just giving you an example as to how you want to allocate your resources. By the way, it's common that I've seen students with resources and they want to do everything. And like me, I did that too. I wanted to do everything. That didn't help me reach my goal. So in January, this is the time to plan the year. I hope you're focused and this helps you to plan what you want to do, what your strategies are going to be. And the icon I put on the side is that's the expenses that you're going to cover. Accommodation, transportation, if you want to travel. And by the way, if you want to donate, if you want to contribute, that should be part of your expenses too. So same thing, you want to give. So you want to have the option to do that. And write this down if you haven't done that. We buy and sell to create capital, so we can buy and hold to create wealth. And like Mike said, I also have done a few flips after I did lease option. And we can buy and sell to create capital. I also mentioned I bought a house, so we actually have to build up our capital again. So you constantly have to pivot. And I will mention how you should look at your short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And you can buy and sell and flip and quickly generate some capital. We're going to talk about private lending. Most of the time, private lending is supposed to be short-term, because I always mention that you have to find a win-win situation. When you're the lender, think about why people want to borrow money from you. When you're borrowing money, think about what the lender wants to lend to you. And if you still have the qualification, one good thing about holding a JOB is that you might be able to qualify for a mortgage with the big banks. So institutional resources include major banks. Some are mortgage lenders. So there are people or banks out there. They probably don't have credit cards. They don't have the full service as the banks. They sometimes call mono lender or alternative lenders. They still qualify you based on your job, based on your credit score, based on your down payment. However, as investors, eventually you're going to be capped out. So we want to make sure you can still have control and have other options available to you. So we're going to talk about private lending and hard money today. We won't have enough time to talk about joint venture. At the same time, you might have a bank mortgage on the property. And at the same time, you're going to renovate. So you might borrow private from somebody else. And you might need somebody to hold the mortgage for you. So you might also put in a joint venture partner. A lot of the times, these are tools you can pull together. Okay? And you want to understand, why do private lenders lend? Before I started investing, or even right now, when I approach some of the people I know they have funds available, especially at my age. A lot of my friends have worked for a while. Not everybody is comfortable with private lending. And I do want you to do this legally, ethically, and safely. Right now, especially in the past year, I've heard a lot of cases where promissory notes, etc., are not going according to plan. As seasoned investor, I realize that people who have done this for a while, they always have alternative ways of getting out of it, or they have other investors ready to replace the funds. Remember, you're only as good as your last deal. If you have a good track record, people are usually willing to invest with you again, especially now you're in the community. There's a lot of money, like I showed you earlier. In one weekend, and everybody was in class. Nobody could call the bank on the weekend. And just over the weekend, we were able to raise 5.8 plus unlimited funds from outside of my class in the network. So again, think about which bucket of income you want to fulfill. The good thing about investing in real estate is that it's secured by hard assets. So I know some people just invest in stocks. I'm not against any different types of investing. However, is it speculating? Are you secured against anything? And I love my mortgage broker who started the journey with me. He mentioned that, think about security. Would the bank lend you money to buy their own mutual funds? However, they will lend you money to buy real estate, the hard asset. Okay? And when you think about different classes of income, real estate covers everything. The portfolio, the earned, the passive. It also depends on how you structure the deal. So it could be passive equity income. Again, a lot of the times, a lender just look at the assets, so paper asset. The cost of borrowing, the return on investment, again, this is about how quickly your money can run for you. A lot of people are saying, when we talk about passive income, really it's when you're the bank. By the way, you still have to put in the time to learn. That's the only thing you really have to put in an effort for. Why do people private lend? Because it's more flexible. And sometimes private lenders have different criteria. Personally, for example, do you do credit check? I do credit check, by the way. However, I'm not looking at their credit score. I want to look at the behavior. I also want to look at their portfolio. If their credit is 850 or it's perfect, or if they have funds, I'm wondering, are they making their money working hard enough for them? So it's different things, different criteria, depending on who you are and what you're comfortable with. Some people are comfortable with $50,000 because they have a lot of funds. Some people are not even comfortable with lending out $30,000. So for people who have a lot of funds, sometimes when they lend out 50, they don't do their due diligence. However, I still encourage you to do that. And this is also a learning experience. A lot of the times when you're purchasing, say, residential or mortgage with the bank, residential mortgage, by the way. So in class, we will differentiate between residential and commercial mortgage. For residential mortgage, if it's private, I don't always require my borrower to show where the down payment is from. Okay? So as long as there's equity, for example, if there's equity on the property, sometimes private lenders don't require a proof of down payment. So it's very, very flexible. I'm just giving you some example as to why it could be so flexible. And sometimes the lender, and even for myself, my credit score is not that great. However, again, in class, I'll show you how to improve your credit score. And credit reports, I do require that. I just want to see their behavior and their down payment and where the money is from. If you see a lot of money sitting on the property, perhaps they didn't take out equity. Say, for example, there are people telling me, I cash flowing in Vancouver into condo, so I don't believe in alternative lending, etc. Reason being, perhaps they own the property outright, meaning there's no mortgage. They're not paying mortgage payment every month. So that's why perhaps they could cash flow. At the same time, if your property is sitting on a lot of equity, what can you do with it? And I mentioned that perhaps it's not the credit that I care about. I want to see their track record. So for the lender, they might want to see what's in your portfolio. And there's unlimited funds out there. If you haven't watched the YouTube clip, that is money. So money is basically unlimited. And I also learned that there's more than $5 billion of RSP money out there. You can show people how to utilize that money. Okay. By the way, this is a 3-pillar. I love things in 3 because it's easier to remember of private lending. return on investment, how long, and security. Not just for private lending, by the way. Even if you just look at an investment, even if you're investing in paper asset, etc. How long? What is your return on investment and what is your security? In real estate, it's often the hard asset. I understand that for some people, this is new to you. If you don't have a calculator, I use very simple numbers. Let's just go through the number with me. I'm open to you taking pictures, or if you want the slides, ask your strategy coaches. So take action. Simple numbers. I already actually kind of went through that already. If you have $100,000 and at 12%, 100,000 to lend out. So median net worth, 329,000. So lend out some of that money, 100,000, and you get 12% of interest. So if you don't have a calculator, 100,000 times 12%, divide that by 12. So that's every month. So you generate $1,000 every month. Okay, very, very passive. So what if you only have $50,000 sitting there? You can borrow $50,000 at 6%. Anybody have line of credit right now? Okay, Donna, okay. Mike, it might not be at 6%, even if it's at 10%, it doesn't matter how much it costs you. If you go through the same calculation, even if it costs you that much, you're still making money, then it will make sense to borrow the money. So if, again, now in total you have 100,000, because you have to pay the 6% interest, that 50,000. So just run through the number with me, 50,000 times 6%. So every year you have to pay $3,000 of interest. So of that 12,000, you're making 9,000. By the way, the good thing is your interest expense is tax deductible. It sounds like you're making less. However, when you calculate the ROI, remember ROI is how much in, how much out. How much in, you're only putting in 50,000 of your own money. So how much in is 50,000 now. Even though you're only making 9,000, now you're making a return of 18%. So that's how fast your money's running for you. Donna!
Brooke, how is the interest that you pay tax deductible? I haven't done that course yet, so just
it's very simple. It's just like expenses. So do you have rental properties yet?
No.
Okay, so if it's a rental property, the mortgage, not the whole mortgage amount, the interest portion, because it's business expense.
But okay, so we're talking about it. This is not just private lending. This is if you're purchasing a property then.
Anything. If you, for example, you lend this money to Ken,
yeah,
and you're paying 6% interest. That 6%, you're getting income from that. Whatever income you have, you can deduct the 6% interest. So by the way, there is business fundamental tutorial coming up. There is also recording out there. Some of the topics might have already been covered. Then you can definitely watch that. And reach out to your mentor, because really it depends on how you structure your corporation. The fundamentals are the same. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through another quick example. If you're not familiar with lender fee, etc., totally fine. Simple numbers. You know, this is like I asked my daughter. This is before middle school, you've learned all this already. However, isn't that interesting? If I already have the knowledge, why didn't I do that? People have to know it's out there and be comfortable with it. So I love 12%. By the way, I often lend out at 12%. Anything additional I make, I could ask for lender fee. I could do different things with it. Normally, I love the number 12% because I know what I'm getting. If I can get 13, 15, totally fine. It really depends on the risk, by the way. We might not have time to cover the risk, and I want to make it simple for you. If you just look at the return on investment, the three things: how much in, how much out, that's return on investment, how long, and finally the security. And we mentioned so many different cities. Where the property is located, it could be your security. Because if you're in a town with 5 people, that's not very secure. even if it's only 50,000. If you're in a town where there are 200,000 people, it's easier to flip, easier to find somebody who take over the collateral, and easier for the bank to grant a mortgage. It's little things like that you have to consider. So say, for example, again, I use 100,000, the return is 5,000 and 1% lender fee. By the way, I just want to show you that depending on the time, if it's the same amount of money you're getting back, if it's only 6 months, your return is higher because you're getting the money back sooner. Your money can work again for you. Usually when somebody is charging 13%, 15%, they want to give you your money back quickly if the borrowing cost is higher. So these are usually 6 months, 1 year project, depending, because these days mortgage might be harder to apply for. So sometimes the period could get longer. However, I just wanted to show you the number. If you get 1% lender fee, that doesn't matter how long it is. 3 months project, 6 months project, the total amount plus 1%, that's the fee. So in terms of return on investment, if you're, by the way, you can look at it differently. Are you the borrower? Then it's the cost of borrowing. If you're the lender, that is your return on investment. So 5,000 is the total return plus $1,000 of lender fee. In total, you get 6,000. So 6,000 divided by 100,000, the money you put in, because it's half a year. So you can do that twice, right? So times 2, that is your return. However, if you get the same return, the project is dragged on for a year, your return is only 6%. Simple math. That's why return on investment, we talked about that first, and now how long? That is really important. So again, there's so many different strategies and so many different tools out there. And I do want you to focus on your goal and what resources you have out there. Credit card, sometimes you can still use credit card, even though they're charging you, say, 20%, 29%. If you can get return higher than that, credit card is usually readily available. If you look at different terms, it's usually more costly when it's a short-term vehicle, credit card, or bridge mortgage. So if you're ready, it happens a lot. When you're waiting for refinancing, you need a bridge mortgage. Or a simple example, sometimes you purchased a home already and you haven't sold your old house, but you need mortgage to get into the new home. So during that period, before you sell your old primary residence, the bank will provide you what's called a bridge mortgage. It's usually very short term. When it's short term, the interest is usually high. One exception is balance transfer. Sometimes balance transfer interest rate could be high. We will show you how to find those deals. Balance transfer interest rates at 0% with just a small fee. So it's available out there. And usually people would need the money for more than a year. However, if you're doing a flip, if you're just wholesaling, meaning giving the rights to somebody else, so paper flipping, you only need the money for short term. And when it comes to your own personal goal, look at the chart. So eventually you might want to own some income property. And at the same time, if you want to focus on lease option, it's usually 2 to 4 years. I've seen 2 to 5 years now. So constantly things have changed and you look at what your goals are. So I think for people who want to focus on retirement, you might want to look at long-term goals. If you want to generate some capital quickly, you might want to flip paper, wholesaling. And there's so many different exit strategies. You have to understand how it works. Sell it, that's simple. Just sell it on the market or sell it to somebody in a private market. Refinance. Say, for example, you got private funds and you're waiting for the bank to come in to reappraise the property. We call it refinance. Or you can repay your joint venture partner or your investor and replace it with somebody else's money. Okay? So these are the rules. Again, return on investment, how long, and your security. Keep that in mind when it comes to lending. However, I put in trust in there because I think that's really the foundation of any deal out there. And I do think this is important. And we trust your talent. So I put up this chart, something I learned not too long ago. And by the way, if you're HR specialist, Mike, or if you're looking for people to work with, if you're hiring somebody, even if they're just your power team member, say for example, contractors, of course you want somebody who is highly efficient, who you can truly trust. That's the best situation. However, I don't know if you encounter the same problem. When students ask me to refer my accountant, my mortgage broker, they're efficient and I trust them. And they become really, really busy. So they're efficient, you can trust them. So what if you don't have that option? The point is to go with somebody who you can really trust, even if they're not efficient. So go with somebody you can trust. The worst scenario is somebody who's not efficient, somebody you don't trust. So don't even bother. When it comes to choices, go with somebody you trust. I'll give you one example. Because when I started, some people, same thing, refer me to very busy accountants, very busy mortgage brokers. I found somebody who's not so busy. However, he's also very new as a mortgage broker. And we basically started at the same time. He wasn't that busy. However, I truly trust him because similar mindset, he was working really hard. And when I was away during Christmas holidays, I had to refinance my house to get HELOC to start my journey. He even came to my house. I said, I'll give you the code for the appraiser to come in. So that's when they didn't do a drive-through appraisal. They came to your house. So he did that for me. I left the wine on my counter for him for doing that. And now we kind of grew together. So imagine now they're truly busy because I think great people like you getting educated, start to build your trust. Eventually you'll be highly efficient and highly trustworthy. My mortgage broker is crazy busy right now. And some people I refer to saying he's too busy. However, if you're in their book since the beginning, wouldn't you get the attention and get the service? So I think if you don't have that choice, still find somebody you can trust, even if they're not efficient. By the way, when we started, it took us an hour to analyze a deal. We're not that efficient. It goes with experience. I want to take the credit. This is not from me, by the way. And anybody know Simon Sinek? This is his idea. And I grabbed it from one of his talks. So again, trust, because we do want you to find a way to find trustworthy people, be ethical, make sure people have to trust you. And I love that sometimes, by the way, it's not going to be 100% going according to plan. It never is. I have a couple rent-to-owns. It took a little bit longer to close. We're working together because we trust each other. And I know we can work through this. And this is the community we're in. There's a lot of us. The community is growing and you're going to be a part of it, or you're already part of it. And it's a lot easier when you can have a community you can trust. And I think that's why a lot of students are running a lot faster now. By the way, I do want to mention something because I still think you should do your due diligence. I have students saying, this is another student in the trust your talent community. I'm not going to run through their numbers. I trust them. At the same time, there are blind spots sometimes. Even if you trust and verify. That is all. Trust and verify. So the only difference I want to mention that why do we say hard money lending? Because again, it's against hard assets. Similarly, there's no regulation. You can do a lot of things that you're not able to do when you go through institutional lending. Very flexible requirements depending on both parties. Higher interest rates, and like I mentioned, sometimes I charge a fee, depends on how you want to structure it. By the way, HML, hard money lending. And equity, sometimes it's just skin in the game. So I know there's some things we mentioned, skin in the game. I also don't, personally, it's up to you. I usually invest in projects where the working partner also put in a little bit of their own money. I want to see that they have skin in the game. It's not a requirement for everybody. It's really up to you. However, if you have the choice, personally, I love to see them having either equity or their own skin in the game. Okay. Normally all the expenses associated with private lending is paid by the borrower. There are creative ways of structuring it. Normally, that's the case. So remember, I do want to mention 3 rules of lending still applies. Promissory notes, very simple. It basically follows what's in, what's out, how long, and what's your return, and what's the collateral. So sometimes it's only a 2-pager. These are the things that's stated in a promissory note. So who are the borrowers? Who are the lenders? What are the fees? So that's part of your ROI. What's the interest rate? How long? In this case, repayment 1 year, maturity date. Sometimes what I do is I say, okay, if you're doing a flip, perhaps you can finish it in 4 months, but I want at least 6 months of interest, because otherwise my money is not working long enough. I have to look for another deal. So minimum 6 months, and you can finish it in a year. I also don't want to drag it too long. So you can say, I want to be paid back within at least a year or a year and a half. That's why it's so flexible. It's really depending on your situation. Recently, I have an investor telling me that they use their son's RESP to invest. And the kid is in university now. The project hasn't ended. They couldn't use their RESP money to fund the education. So it has to be aligned with your personal goals as well. As flexible as it can be. So I do want to mention that sometimes it's not written in my slides or in your contract. You still have to be mindful of that. And it's up to you if you want appraisal. The banks do have appraisers. There are also private appraisers out there. I don't always ask for appraisal. At the same time, a lot of the times appraisers are just looking for comparisons. If you have access to see what's closed recently, what are the current market price, you can decide if you want an appraisal or not. Again, this is personal. Any loan to value, it depends on what you are comfortable with. So I do want to mention that. This is just a screenshot of a couple of promissory notes that I have. As you can see, it could be short and simple. Okay? And we use this example to show you that sometimes you think you have to have a lot of money to fund a project. It doesn't have to be that way. So it's actually very similar to a flip project I did many, many years ago. I didn't do the hard work. I'm just the money partner in that case. And the person purchased a property like the one showing here for $200,000, renovation cost $78,000. And they didn't realize that they actually need landscaping, because first impression matters. So everything in, they couldn't get a mortgage, by the way, because there's foundation issues, there's roof issues. The banks wouldn't finance it. So they have $200,000, they need $70,000 to renovate, $25,000 to do landscaping. What if you don't have the funds? By the way, after everything is done, if you're not familiar with the terms, ARV, after repair value, $435,000 after 4 months. So 435 minus all the money in. I didn't even ask you to calculate it. Who would get into the deal with 140,000 profit? If you're not raising your hand, I'm concerned. As an investor, Ken, you have doubts. Okay. And I want to know what your fears are. If you're not going to go ahead with this deal, reach out to me or reach out to your strategy coaches. What didn't I cover? So if you don't have all the funds, if you have to borrow the $70,000 and the $25,000 for 4 months at 12%. By the way, I'm the one that put in the $25,000 to fund this deal. Not a lot of money. Like I said in the beginning when I started investing, I wasn't very sure about private lending myself. However, that's what took me to financial freedom. So like I said, I love the number 12%. So if 700 per month and 250 per month times 4, you might have to share the wealth, pay 3,800 for 4 months. So even though your profit is reduced, now it's 136,000. I will still do this deal. Anybody else will still do this deal? Finally, everybody. Mike Mully. There you go. Where do you find the 25,000? Here's where you can find 25,000. You can go to these two. I'm not promoting anybody, by the way. These two banks' websites, these are still available right now. These are currently available. I know that the Red Bank, one of the Red Bank is also offering the same thing. So if you can borrow 25,000 and get money transfer and fund this deal, and that's what I did. So it's not about how much it costs you, it's really about how much it makes you, even if you have to share the wealth. And usually that's when money is unlimited and you can fund numerous deals as a result. So I just want to use this example because now we've gone through the numbers. Don't worry about it if you're not familiar with it yet. So sometimes there's a balance transfer fee. So regardless how long you borrow the money, there's a 1% fee. Initial investment, 295,000. If you can find balance transfer of 25,000. By the way, if you already build up your credit with these two banks, I think when I first applied, I got about 40,000. Sometimes you have to start to build relationship with them. That aside, if you can only get 25,000, which is still a healthy amount. So 295, your initial investment, and you got 25,000. So that doesn't have to come out of your own pocket, by the way, OPM, but you have to pay 250 balance transfer fee. That's how much money in. Even if you leverage a little bit, look at the ROI. Your return on investment could improve. Remember what I said about return on investment is how fast your money can run for you. Okay. So I'm going to quickly go through this because I realize not everybody here wants to focus on real estate to retire when I did the survey. Regardless, even if you're not retiring, the fund is out there because people do need to have retirement funds. I mentioned that when I started teaching, about 50% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. Currently it's 66%. It is getting worse. At the same time, do people have problem covering their expenses? Or their ability to, so look at it the other way, people's ability to cover their month-to-month expenses. Right now, only about 39% of people have the ability to do that. And in 2020, it was 57%. I'm sure if we run the data in the 70s and 80s, the number will look a lot better when a lot of people are living on one income. So these are the numbers, what's out there. I just want you to know that $5 billion, 5 point something billion dollars are out there because we can contribute to RSP. Few things I just want to make sure you do it ethically and do it right. You cannot do it with your wife, your kids, anybody within arm's length, meaning people that are too close to you. So somebody from extended family, your cousin, etc. And an easy way to do the test, if you have doubt, don't do that. If it's your in-law, you, by the way, by the time you're married, you and your wife or you and your husband are basically one entity. So you're saying, is my wife some from the first marriage count as arm's length? Yes. Your in-laws, your mother-in-law, yes. When in doubt, don't do it. And the book RSP said, yes, there are ways of doing it. I never heard people doing that. And there's a lot of buts. So I think for the sake of doing things ethically and correctly, you have to keep in mind arm's length rule apply. The only difference when it comes to RSP, anybody hasn't closed a property before, never bought a property, never bought a house. Okay, so the only difference is that there is a trustee in the middle of the mix. So you can private lend, you can be the bank, you just have to go through trustees and make sure you follow the rules. Arm's length is one thing. You still have to go through a lawyer. So your money goes into the trustee's trust account. If you have done a transaction before, the money goes into the lawyer's trust account. They make sure everything is done correctly according to law. The banks are satisfied. They release the funds from their trust account. So same thing, when it's RSP, you just have, for example, Olympia Trust in the middle as trustee. They want to make sure you do your due diligence, everything is done correctly before they release the funds to your lawyer. So just one more step. And remember, ROI. I don't want you to think it's really just your money. Also, it is your time. I do this exercise a lot with people. If you're only in your 20s, you might not feel it. If you're middle-aged like me, in your 40s, already 60% of the time it's gone. So pull out a paper, I think you can really sense it. And 83 is the average life expectancy in Canada. I'm sorry if you're a guy, your life expectancy is slightly shorter. By 81. By 80 or 81. And ladies, we have it till 83, 84. I'm doing the average number on the chart, assuming that you have 82 years. Write down 82 numbers and cross out each number. Then you'll realize how much time you have. And if you look at this chart, remember we're talking about financial education and wealth building. If you're before your 40s, if you're 44, you only need $2 million to be the top 1%. Time is not very forgiving. Once you reach 45, you have to double your net worth to be in the top 1%. So if you're young, do that now. My son is 18 years old. I actually checked the numbers. If you have $10,000 when you're 18, you're the top 1%. So do this while you still have time. By the time you're 50, you should have about 4 or 5 million to be the top 1%, because it tells you how much time you have. And really, I think it really explains it well in this clip I want to share. So I do want you to realize how much time we have. And also for those of you who have young kids or kids still at home, that's how much time you have. My son just got out of the house and I realized 90% of the time I spent with him is gone. And luckily, I love my coworkers. So Mike, I love to work with you guys. If you hate your job and you have to spend so much time with your coworkers, imagine how much time you have to spend with people you like or don't like. And for those of us who are married, you're going to spend a lot of time with your significant others. So I'm sure we love them very much. And you do want to know how you want to spend your time. And we're in a community spending time with like-minded people. If you haven't done that, book a call with your strategy coach. So Mike Mollet, who is your strategy coach, by the way?
Andrew.
Andrew, okay. If anything, make sure you book a call with him, follow up, and take your next step. And I'm actually giving it to you right here. This is the map I follow today. If I can give you this map with one strategy, our strategy coach can map it out for you. And once you have all the tools you have, taking the advanced training, map it out every year with your mentor, like I did with Tim and Ray. Or do this yourself and have your mentor review it with you. Very simple. I like things in three tier, like the corporation you might be setting up right now. Private lending is about scaling and increase your wealth. It's really when you can behave like the bank that you're starting to see wealth and passive income. My goal is to educate you today, inspire for you to have fun with me. I know an hour and a half seems too short. I still wish you have fun within the time we have together. Everything in 3. So 3 rules. ROI, how long, and your security. The instruments we've briefly gone through, private lending, hard money, and RSP. There's a lot more out there. This is the foundation. We can talk about mortgages once you're in the training with us. Private lending, there are different ways. Joint ventures, another form. Or you can mix things up. We're going to talk about joint venture agreements. Or for sale by owner, seller financing. We can also talk about vendor take back or lease option as acquisition strategy. So you're going to learn a lot as you come through different strategies with us. And behind it is an investor mindset. And all these are just instruments. You still have to find the right strategies for you as your hard strategies so you can apply these tools. If you haven't taken down any notes, I do want you to remember that you buy and sell to create capital. So you can buy and hold to create wealth. And a lot of the times you're probably doing both. You're creating capital and at the same time you're creating wealth. I don't want you to be overwhelmed. Focus at the same time. You can do both at the same time. You just have to focus on what your priorities are. It's not about how much it costs you. It's really about how much it makes you. 6%, 20%, 25,000, and now you're in real estate. 800,000, 4 million. It doesn't scare you. Really, it's about how much it makes you. And money is your least limiting factor. You can focus on other aspects of life. So if you haven't taken anything down, take a picture of this so I can see you in person and we can meet each other online as well. If you're already in the community, take a picture, share the QR code with your friends and with your family. And by the way, if you're able to join us, this is what it's like. Thank you, everybody. So that concludes today's presentation. If you want to see Mike dance, come see us in person. I love that dance.
I teach that in my coaching calls too, just saying.
Any questions? Good? Okay. Thank you, everybody.